So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to avoid burnout. Okay, so especially if you're an entrepreneur or even if you're an employee, you will experience at some point in your life feeling drained, okay, and tired. And you have actually not been physically tired because you were sitting all day at the office or at home, but emotionally, mentally, and psychologically you feel drained and you feel this sense of powerlessness. And no matter what you do, this is the time where you want to sleep, you don't want to get up, and you just don't have enough motivation to go out or do anything. Okay, that's the state that I'm talking about, where you just don't have the energy to do anything. And this is not for an hour, this is not for a day, but this is for many days. And it could be a state of even nervous breakdown, identity crises. You're completely smashed. And this is something that happened to me actually a couple of months ago, and this has happened to me a few times in my life. And I have learned so much about those times. And if you don't take proper measures to recover from that state, you can have serious problems. So I'm going to talk in this video how to avoid it. So watch the full video from beginning to end if you want the full value. And if you're new to this channel, hit that subscribe button so that you can get an update whenever I upload a video, and I upload one video a day. Okay, so let's get back to the burnout. So I experienced something like this a couple of months ago, around 8-9 months ago, and I took some very strategic decisions in my life that got me out of that burnout. I felt more energy, I reduced my sleep quota, and I was able to work much more. In fact, I was able to work all day, and I had sudden burst of energy. It was the kind of energy that I had never experienced in my whole life. And I have been on many different types of diets, from vegan, vegetarian diet to meat diet, and I have explored various exercise forms also. And I have tried a whole bunch of stuff to avoid this, but nothing seems to be working. But these few changes really made me have all of this energy. And I have been extremely productive these days, and I know why that is. Okay, so let's get into the reasons. Number one, when you are feeling burnt out, just understand that in some way your time is being exploited. Okay, it could be a family member that's exploiting your time. It could be a friend that could be exploiting your time. It could be a relative exploiting your time. It could be your office boss. For sure, if you're working in employment, your time is being exploited. Then you have got the government with the taxes, you feel exploited. There are so many layers in the society and so many structures and frameworks that actually are designed and devised to exploit the time and money of people. Okay, so if you have any of those happening, then you will feel exploited. Now, taxes you cannot do anything about, or there are ways to legally reduce the taxes, and you can explore that, but we'll not get in that subject right now. But we can talk about your office, your friends, and your family, all of that. So we'll divide it into two categories: at the personal level and at the company level or at the business level. Okay, so let's talk about the personal level. If you have individuals in your environment that are either jealous of you, in competition with you, and just do not have the best interest for you, and are insecure themselves and unconsciously hold you back, and if you have a few of those, just a few or even one, you will have a tremendous amount of burnout, because they will make sure they keep getting in front of you and stop you from where you want to go in life. And you will find this pattern over and over again that they will try to get into arguments with you and try to take your attention away because you're really focused on your goal, and somebody tries to goes out of their way to start an argument with you and start leeching off your energy. If you have 1, 2, 3 people in your personal life and in your business life, you're finished. You're not going to have energy because these people are in your environment and you're not removing them, and you can't do anything to remove them. So this happened has been happening for a couple of years with my brother. Anytime I want to start something, he has a critical judgment on it, comments, doubts. And what this type of feedback and argument does is that it discourages you, it affects your self-esteem, and it infects your mind. And because narratives and arguments have power to influence your mind, and you can start to have self-doubt. And what will happen is, already there are so many barriers to success. And when you want to do something, these noises in your head will hold you down. Even when my brother is not around, now it doesn't happen anymore, but it used to happen that the noises in my head would become really loud. And I thought they were my voices, but it was actually my brother's voice. Something he said, oh, you're not good enough, this, that, whatever nonsense that he made up. And he told me to kind of drag me down, were ringing in my head. Okay. And they would stop me. These voices can stop you to communicate what you want to say. You know, have you heard that little voice in your head that, don't say that, you'll look stupid? Or why did you just say that? You're so fucking stupid. You know, and these types of voices, it's coming from your environment. And you will have a burnout. You can have a burnout because of that. So toxic people is number one factor. They could be in your workplace or your environment. Particularly, I want you to look at an area in your family and in your personal life and in the workplace with people on whom in some way you are dependent on. So the boss, you're dependent for a salary. At home, you may have a girlfriend or a wife, you're dependent on her for certain things, for example, your sex life or food or something of that nature. So something as essential as sex life and food, if it's dependent on a person that's toxic, that person can use that to control you. And if and they can exploit your time. So they can use that leverage, and they can say that you need to do these things, otherwise no sex, or otherwise my mood will get upset and no sex. You know, I have noticed women do this. I have heard, you know what I'm talking about, okay? So this is one form of leverage, or it's a very classic scene in movies. Or if you don't do this, you're not going to get food today. Please order from outside. You're not going to get food today. So how are you going to survive on outside food? How long? So there are these types of tactics that can happen in your personal environment. Or someone you're financially dependent on says, I'm not going to give you money. Or the boss says you're not going to get a raise, and so on and so on. So if those people that you're dependent on are toxic and they don't have the best interest at heart, you're going to feel drained. Okay, so that's one factor. The other factor is that you're not being compensated well enough for your work. You're not paid well enough. You know, somebody's taking 8 to 10 hours from your day, from your life, and paying you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And most people wouldn't label that as exploitation, but I would. Okay, there is no reason you should spend 8 to 10 hours working for someone, getting them rich, and getting this little salary that maybe is not enough for you to survive. Okay, so maybe in a third world country you can survive in that, but especially if you're living in Europe, United States, Canada, it's very difficult. So if you have those types of hours, and if you have very little salary, you're pushed in a position where you have to do your dishes, clean. You have too many things that you're doing even outside of work, that are non-revenue generating activities. And on top of that, if you have the toxic people dynamic, then all of this contributes to feeling burnt out. Okay, so that's another factor. So your income, your level of income will also dictate how burnt out you are. And I heard about this guy. His name is Michael Milken. Okay, you can Google him. He made billions of dollars, and one particular year he made around 700 million in commissions. And that year he slept only 3 hours. I think 3 or 2 hours, some ridiculous amount. And he made so much of money. And I was like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, how can someone work that much and keep going? And he even lived very longer. I don't know if he's alive or not, but he was way till in his 70s. So it's not like he affected his health or anything, but he just kept going. And it's because he was operating from a place of excitement. When you're making that much of money, or when you're positioned in an opportunity where you can make that kind of money, suddenly you will see that your sleep quota reduces. I noticed when I started to make some money, it was like daylight in the night. I just couldn't sleep. I lost my sleep. I have seen people, I used to go to these high stakes poker games at some point, and many of those guys don't sleep for many days. It's very common in poker when money is being exchanged, there's so much excitement that you lose your sleep. So there are these spots in your life where you have this crazy surge of energy, okay, this excitement, this rush. It even happens when you fall in love, or when your crush has said that you're going to have a date tomorrow, and you've been waiting for many years. Maybe you asked her out, and then now she's invited you, and she's the girl of your dreams, and you can't sleep. It's just booming in excitement. Or maybe you just had a great night with her, and you wound up going home together, and next day you come back and you just can't believe it. You can't sleep, and it's a very different state. So you will hit those spots where what you want and what you're doing, your dream becomes real, and what you're doing in day to day is actually contributing towards your dream. In those situations, you will see a burst of energy happening. And the opposite is also true. When you don't have what you're doing is not aligned with your visions and goals and dreams, but you're doing it for practical reasons. Somebody told you you have to be practical, and you're doing this job, you really don't want to do it. You're going to that college, you really don't want to go. Like, I recently spoke to someone, he said that, but I don't want to go to college, I want to build a business. I don't want to go to college. I said, then why are you going to college? And then he said that it's because my mother asked me to go. I said, what kind, are you going to let your mother drive your life? So again, whenever someone is trying to control you one way or the other, using whatever leverage they have over you, and making you do something you don't want to do, or making you do something that's not aligned with your vision, those activities you will feel extremely burnt out, because you're burning out time. It's like a rocket ship that wants to go up, and there are strings attached to the ground, and it's not able to take off, and it's eventually going to burn out. Okay, so work does not create burnout, but lack of alignment between your strategy and your vision will create burnout. Because really what you want to do is go here, but you have people that are holding you back, and you're exerting energy to move up, and they're holding you back. This is what creates burnout. Resistance from your environment causes burnout. Resistance can come in the form of actual resistance from people, or resistance can also come from limiting the amount of money that you make. So you have very little power, and you're put in a position where you're making little money and giving a lot of time. So if you're not making a lot of money, or if you're not positioned in an opportunity which is going to eventually get you to make a lot of money, you will also feel burnt out. Okay. So if you know that at your job, you want to make $10 million, but you have a job that's paying you $2,000-$3,000, that's a misalignment of strategy and vision. Okay. You've chose job as a strategy to get rich. It's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. Most likely it's not going to happen. Okay. There are some people who have done it, but most likely it's not going to happen. So you know that, and you are doing this task, you know you're spending time which is never going to come back, and you're thinking and daydreaming about your vision, but you have to finish these tasks that somebody's going on and on piling up on you. And it's really their tasks. It's not your task, it's their task. It's their business that you're working in. Literally, it's their business. So those types of dynamics will drain you completely. Okay, those are the major factors that lead to burnout. All right. So the solution is to get rid of toxic people, all of them. Don't even keep one. And to be positioned in an opportunity which has a high growth potential for your career. Now, these opportunities tend to have a very high fear index. Okay, high anxiety index. Okay, so that's the price you will pay. That it'll be scary, it'll be intimidating, it'll have a lot of pressure there, but you will enjoy, you'll have fun. Okay, so those types of careers, you can explore those options. Now, the other aspect, and this is a little bit tricky one, and it took a little bit time for me to understand this, is when I had started to, negotiate $1 million deals. At that time, I did not have any technical knowledge, any technical skills, and I kind of felt stupid in that space. So I felt always nervous to communicate because I didn't understand the technical terms associated with my investment business. So what I did was 8-9 months I felt burnt out. And then what I did was, why am I feeling burnt out? Because I feel confused. I'm not able to connect the dots in the meetings. Okay, I'm doing things, I'm putting myself and exposing myself to these big deals, but I don't understand everything that's happening. So I was like, why don't I understand? It's because I don't understand the vocabulary, the financial vocabulary. So I said, okay, I got myself a book, Basics of Finance. There is a book called Financial Intelligence. I got that book and I started to read it. It explained every single financial term that is there on an audited financial statement. The moment I understood all the words, I suddenly opened the audited financial statement. It was clear. I could communicate more effectively, and it was all great. So lack of understanding of vocabulary and words can create stress and burnout. Okay. And so whichever field that you are in, you got to educate yourself, get yourself a book, read the basics, foundational work, and you will feel much more grounded in what you're talking about. All right. So all of this combined with obviously food, the type of food that you eat, if you have high fatty food or bad alcohol, if you have good alcohol, scotch once in a while, it's okay, or wine, good wine. But if you're having cheap alcohol, that can be a reason. Cigarettes can be a reason for burnout also. And another thing that I noticed, even when I had decided that I want to become an entrepreneur, I still felt burned out. And again, the reason was that I didn't have good information. So another reason is bad information. So if you have bad information on which you're acting upon, then you can also feel burnt out. So you need information that works, information that's reliable, information that's coming from someone's experience and someone's direct experience, and they know what they're talking about, and they've given you this information, and you execute this information, and then you start to feel this power. because it works. Okay, whenever I have used information that does not work, I have felt very, very burnt out, because I'm really not moving in the direction that I really want to move in, and I'm wasting time. So most of these will be related to draining your time. Anytime you're draining time and not getting enough out of your time, that's a burnout. If you're making a lot of money and it's just like pouring in, you will see you cannot sleep, because with the money your whole life is changing, your whole perspective is shifting, your character is shifting, your position in life is changing, your status in life is changing, your environment is going to change, your neighborhood is going to change, your car is going to change, everything that you want, start to happen, and suddenly like there is a whole rush of excitement and you want to go to work. Another thing is that if you lack skills, for example, I would go into negotiations and I didn't know how to negotiate. So those kind of skill gaps, and every time you go on a negotiation table and you get beaten badly, then that can also affect your mood and it can completely drain you. So, which comes back to the point of understanding. If you don't understand how things work in a certain area, if you have a lack of understanding, you will have confusion and resistance of going there. And if it's part of your work to go there every day you're having resistance and confusion, and that will create burnout. Okay, so one more story, last one that I wanted to share with you. In my company, I am the major shareholder and I am the founder and managing director. And I had one individual in my company, I'm not going to name who managed to gain some leverage over me. Okay. And he started to very subtly control me. And he started to almost threaten me and use fear to control me. And those 7 to 9 months, I had one of the worst times in my life, because I wanted to quit every day. I was burnt out, and he managed to convince me and deviate me from the vision and got me to execute the strategy he thought was right for the venture. But I was the ultimate decision maker. I could have said no. But every time I would say no, he would try to use fear to take control of my mind. And there are very experienced professionals that are capable of doing that. And I didn't know, at the beginning I was learning, I didn't know what was happening. All I knew, I just felt drained, I felt lack of motivation, I didn't want to act. I knew something was wrong, and every time I slept in the night, I was thinking about this person. I need to get rid of him, I need to get rid of him. And I cannot get rid of him because, it was a complex situation. So I found a way, it had become very toxic, I found a way to get rid of him. The moment I got rid of him, and the moment I stopped communicating with my brother and draw a boundary to his unnecessary opinions, suddenly I experienced a lift off. In my energy levels, I started to sleep less, I even started to eat less, and I started to produce results, take decisions effectively, because you don't have people holding you back, you don't have self-doubt, and in my case, I'm positioned in a right opportunity where my deal exposure is in the millions, and all the people that I work around now, my board members, who I absolutely admire and respect, are all very supportive individuals who empower me, support me. So it's really about cultivating the right environment and an ambience, what you have for a plant. If you have too many toxic elements there, the plant will not grow. The plant will burn itself out. But when you have the right elements, nurturing elements, empowering elements in your life, many of those, and you keep removing the toxic elements. It could be a job that's toxic. Okay, you made a bad deal. You decided that, okay, it's going to be an 8-hour job. It turned out to be 12 hours. And they're paying you very little salary. Look, that's a toxic environment. You're not going to get anywhere with it. Whatever you make, you spend. You're not going to get anywhere with it. Now, I'm not saying you quit immediately. That will not be wise. But you need to find an alternative while you have that job, so you can transition into a better opportunity. Okay, so that's my perspective on burnout. It's really something to do with when your time is being exploited, when you feel exhausted, or when someone is trying to control your mind using leverage over you. And leverage could be guilt, fear, even love. People use love quite a lot. Financial leverage, violence, domination. I mean, there are so many types. But for whatever reason, you're made to do something that you're not aligned with. You're made to do something that you don't agree with. But you have to do it because they have twisted your arm and pushed you in a position to do it. So don't let that happen. Okay, you gotta analyze this stuff. Okay, this is a very complex dynamic, human relationships. You need to analyze each and every relationship that you have in your life, and you need to evaluate what it provides for you and what it takes away. You need to do an audit of your life. This is coming from one of my mentors. He said, evaluate what is this relationship taking away from me and what is it providing. And relationships are meant to be mutually beneficial. If it's not mutually beneficial, it's a toxic relationship. If your futures are not aligned, then it's a toxic relationship, because one person will try to pull the other. So get rid of all of this. Don't even leave a single hook. And sometimes you will have to pay a price. Emotionally, in business, you may have to pay a price, even financially. Getting rid of people can sometimes cost money. You want to get rid of a business partner, boss, employee, whoever, it can take, you will have to pay a price at times. But the price, if you pay that price, it will benefit you because you'll have more energy and you can resolve that issue. So that's the video on how to avoid being burnt out. I'll talk to you soon.